Hello, my name is TEnongene, and I'll be presenting my cognitive science term final project, which is a literature review examining the impact of automation on cognitive load, situational awareness, and crew interaction in aviation. Automation in flight control systems has significantly advanced aviation operations, enhancing efficiency and reducing pilots' manual workload. However, the shift towards increased automation introduces cognitive challenges, particularly in maintaining situational awareness and managing cognitive load during emergencies or high stress scenarios. This project performs a comprehensive review examining the interplay between automation levels in aircraft flight control systems, cognitive load, pilot situational awareness, and crew interaction. The review then provides actionable insights for enhancing pilot training programs, cockpit design, and regulatory policies to ultimately foster safety and innovation in aviation. The main research questions this review will seek to answer are: how does the level of automation in flight systems affect pilots' situational awareness and cognitive load during high stress scenarios? How do shared mental models impact cognitive load and performance during multi-crew operations? And how does trust in automation correlate with cognitive load and decision-making efficiency in cockpit environments? This review is important as it facilitates the understanding of human automation interaction in aviation by addressing the following critical challenges that crews may face: situational awareness and cognitive load, which is the pilot's perception of the immediate environment and the ability to derive the meaning of all of its elements; skill degradation due to automation, which is the degree to which pilots have control, ranging from manual control to full automation, and how it affects your hand flying skills; automation complacency and bias, which is the degree to which pilots rely too much on automation, leading to complacency and less vigilance or potential errors; and crew resource management, which is the standard by which crew members communicate with each other during decision making to ensure that different perspectives on any given situation are resolved before arriving to the best final decision. Three tragic anecdotal events were selected to further highlight the importance of this research. The first is the crash of Bergen Air Flight 301 in February of 1996 in the Dominican Republic. Both pilots received different readings in speed and altitude shortly after takeoff due to an occluded pitot tube. Both pilots spent time troubleshooting the automation systems and failed to recognize that the aircraft had gone into a fatal stall. The relevance to this is failure of situational awareness, high cognitive load, and poor crew resource management. The second one is Air France Flight 447 crashing over the Atlantic Ocean on June 1, 2009, after the aircraft disconnected itself from autopilot due to inconsistent airspeed indications. The pilots failed to detect a stall and did not engage in any recovery maneuver as instructed in their training. The relevance to this is high cognitive loads, high levels of automation, especially as they were flying the Airbus 330, which is well known for its advanced high-tech fly-by-wire system. Lion Air Flight 610 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed less than a year apart, and this was due to Boeing's new MCAS system that was installed on its latest 737 MAX aircraft as it became faulty and began forcibly pushing the nose of the plane down, blocking pilot input. The relevance to this is a high reliance and prioritization of automation, incomplete and missing system information on an automation component. I implemented the following selection criteria when curating articles for the research project. The articles had to be relevant to the research questions and published within the last 10 to 15 years, have the full text available for download in PDF at no extra cost or subscription, had to be empirical studies, quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods focusing on aviation, studies addressing the impact of automation on pilot cognitive load and on situational awareness, studies exploring crew interactions in automated flight environments, and I excluded articles that were not published in English. I adopted the following research methodology in the research project. I identified research questions drawing insights from cognitive psychology, aviation safety, and human factors engineering, curated the relevant papers by searching via the Georgia Tech Library, Google Scholar, ResearchGate, PubMed, and ScienceDirect, and selected 15 papers. Read each paper and took notes to identify trends, concepts, relevance to the research questions, tabulated all the results in an Excel spreadsheet and classified by relevance to each research question, performed analysis of the results, research principles and concepts from cognitive science that could explain the results and formulated potential answers to the research questions, and brainstormed on the practical implications and proposed actionable insights based on the answers to the research questions. I will now be presenting the most pertinent results from the review. One study extracted 61 events from data in the aviation safety reporting system used to identify potential for surprise or unexplained discrepancies in readings or indicators. It was found that 30% of the cases represented a distinct threat of cognitive overload, resulting in a subsequent decline in pilot performance and loss of situational awareness. 92% of the pilots tested reported confusion on unexplained cases when tested on how to decipher GPS conflicts. In another study that aimed to understand how flight time, cognitive reflection, workload, and stress affected pilots' decision making, 104 pilots participated in the two flight simulation scenarios. Pilots with lower cognitive reflection scores demonstrated improved decision making and situational awareness, particularly with increased flight time. 56% of the pilots displayed decreased decision making efficiency with increased load, primarily due to stress and frustration. In another study focusing on automation bias, the researchers found that pilots exhibited a high rate of omission errors, which is failing to take action due to the expectation of automation, commission errors, which is taking the wrong action based on the response from automation, and false memories, which is the pilot's judgments and memories bias towards confirming their expectations. Several of the studies consistently found that crew resource management, teamwork, and shared mental models all improve operational efficiency in the cockpit. One study that consisted of 2,000 pilots in both civilian and military settings went through line-oriented flight training, which involves training in a flight simulation with a complete crew to measure crew interaction. The study found that flight crews that engaged in better planning developed better shared mental models of each other's informational requirements. They also provided more information in advance and communicated better during periods of high workload, leading to an overall improvement in performance. The aggregate results from the Bayer studies reinforce the impact of cognitive load on pilots' performance, situational awareness, decision-making, and crew interaction. The results drew key parallels and inferences to four main areas in cognitive science I could identify: CRUM, the computational representational understanding of mind; attention, memory, and logic; bounded rationality; and distributed cognition. CRUM highlights that the mind works by processing information through internal representations. Situational awareness is the pilot's understanding of what is happening around me in a sense. CRUM does suggest how this understanding is built from mental representations of the aircraft state, the pilot's immediate environment, and the intended flight path. If the mental representations are incomplete or inaccurate, it will be detrimental to situational awareness. CRUM also helps us understand how pilots interact with modern automation systems. The pilots must form accurate mental models of how automation is working and anticipate its behavior. Any failure in that mental model may lead to errors in flight. Pilots constantly use logical reasoning to assess situations, evaluate risks, and make decisions. Pilots must also practice divided attention and selective attention to properly monitor all necessary information, particularly when monitoring the state and behavior of complex aircraft automation. Any defects in logic will be primary contributors to omission and commission errors, as we discussed before. Pilots also rely heavily on procedural memory for routine tasks, working memory for retaining and processing information during flight, and also require long-term memory for various aspects of aviation, such as regulations and emergency procedures. Herbert Simon's concept of bounded rationality is highly relevant to the understanding of how pilots make decisions. It acknowledges that humans, including pilots, do not always make perfectly rational decisions due to cognitive limitations and environmental constraints. Pilots have limited information processing capacity, so they may be unable to simultaneously consider all possible options and their consequences in any given situation. In a sense, they may often satisfy rather than optimize, meaning they choose a solution that's good enough rather than the absolute best one. Bounded rationality may be why pilots could miss essential cues or become fixated on specific aspects of a situation, as seen in the case of Bergen Flight 301. Distributed cognition emphasizes that cognitive processes are distributed across individuals, tools, or technologies and the environment. Pilots engage in cognitive offloading by utilizing instruments, checklists, and others to manage workloads and enhance decision making. Automated flight systems, such as the autopilot and flight management computer, act as extensions of the pilot's cognition by handling routine operations and ensuring an active cognitive role in flight operations. Crew resource management, which emphasizes the importance of effective communication, shared mental models, and clear roles within the flight crew, is a form of distributed cognition. Effective crew resource management ensures that cognitive responsibilities are distributed appropriately, allowing for coordinated decision making and error management. In conclusion, increased automation in flight systems can enhance pilots' performance and reduce mental workloads by managing routine tasks. However, higher levels of automation may lead to decreased situational awareness and complacency. Trust in automation significantly influences pilots' decision-making processes. The appropriate level of trust is required for optimal use of automation to effectively balance the cognitive load between pilots and flight systems. Shared mental models among crew members are essential for effective coordination and communication during flight operations. A common understanding of tasks, current system status, and environmental factors enables crews to anticipate actions, distribute workload efficiently, and respond promptly to any dynamic situations. The following practical implications and recommendations were gleaned from the research project. Integrating advanced technologies into cockpit design offers significant opportunities to enhance pilot performance and safety. Any innovations must be implemented thoughtfully to avoid any unintended consequences resulting from failures in human cognition. Not only are checklists a critical component of distributed cognition, but they could also be designed to consider the concepts of bounded rationality, logic, and memory, providing pilots with only pertinent information or directions particularly relevant to any given situation. Any error messages should be readily apparent and explicit, and possible enunciations on pilot directions be provided. Augmented reality systems are also a proposed solution in aviation that can improve situational awareness. However, any designs for this system should prioritize intuitive interaction methods that align with pilots' natural behaviors and minimize any additional cognitive burdens. Thank you for your time for listening to this comprehensive literature review project.